Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name's Katie and I make book-related videos every single Wednesday, and as you can tell from the title of this video is not related to books whatsoever. Those of you who are longtime subscribers will know that I used to film psych pop videos, that's what I called them. I have a whole playlist of my psych pop videos if you click above or if you go to the main page of my channel, where I just had different videos related to psychology, but work just got busy so I kind of fell off the wagon with those. But today I wanted to come back to this and give you guys some advice on finding the career path or job that is right for you. And I know people who maybe have not been to my channel before, or even if you have, you might be coming across this video and thinking, okay, well, why are you an expert? You're clearly not someone who's seasoned and has been working within any type of field for 30 plus years. Why should we be listening to you? And to that I would say I agree with you. There are definitely people who are greater experts than I am. And the reason I'm making this video is because this is a big part of what I studied. My master's is in industrial organizational psychology, essentially the study of people in the workplace, and a big part of that is obviously looking at what personality types fit with different jobs. And on top of that, with just my regular 9-to-5 job throughout the week, I interview people a lot. A big part of my current job on top of that is figuring out if different people are a good fit for different roles. I have 4 main pieces of advice, and as I go through them, I'll have the gist of them on the screen below, so if you also want to fast forward to hear me talk about a different topic, feel free. And obviously make sure to leave your own advice down below. I'm not the orb of knowledge when it comes to this subject, so I'm sure a lot of you guys will have wonderful input that you can comment down below. So my number 1 piece of advice is when you're looking into different careers or different jobs, be focusing 50% on what you're passionate about and then the other 50% on the environment. Now I'm sure the passion part is self-explanatory for you guys. Make sure you're focusing on a topic that you love, but that other 50%, when I say focus on what the environment would be like, that has kind of a two-pronged approach. You want to do some research into what the actual work environment would be like. So for example, would you be working from home? Would you be working from an office? Would you be around a lot of people, a few people, no people? And also the non-work environment. So how many hours per week would you be working? How stressful would it be? What would your lifestyle be like due to this job outside of the office? And the reason I really want to stress this is the number 1 mistake that I see people making is that they just focus on one of these areas. So the example I'm going to give, and I will try and give examples for everything that I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to give the example of an accountant. And this is slightly random because I don't have a ton of feelings either way on being an accountant, honestly, but I have 3 close friends who are accountants, and I just happen to hear them talking about it a lot. So for the first example, say someone wants to be an accountant simply because they've taken an accounting class and they just really love the topic, but they haven't done any research into what actually being an accountant day to day would be like. If that's the case, even if they love the topic of accounting, they might actually get into that work and realize that they despise the actual work and lifestyle that comes with it. Or say it's the reverse and you're only focusing on the environment aspect and you're just focused on the fact that there are a lot of accounting jobs out there. I personally don't know many accountants who struggle to find a job just because most company needs accountants, and say you're only focused on that latter 50% of environment and that you'd be comfortable and that you would always hopefully have a job and wouldn't be jobless. But in this scenario you haven't focused whatsoever on actually enjoying the topic of accounting, so that leads you to hate your work. So the crux of this, and I think this piece of overall advice, you might think, okay, well that seems really obvious, but I see so often people just focusing on one of those areas. So it's very important to do your research and to not go into a career only having an understanding of what you know from the classroom and stereotypes of what that work will actually be like. And that segues me perfectly into my next piece of advice, which is prior to going into a certain career, make sure that you shadow. Because although there is valuable information online, hopefully like this video, you can only learn so much. So in my opinion, it is incredibly valuable to be shadowing someone, ideally multiple people, and just talking with them, whether it's following them around work for the day, say just meeting up with them for lunch, or even just a phone call if that's all you can manage, and just getting an idea of what their actual day-to-day work is like. And I know for some of you guys who are maybe more on the introverted side like I am, you might be thinking, especially maybe if you're a high schooler and you're a little younger, you might be thinking, oh well, I don't know anyone who works in the field that I do, and even if I do, I don't want to irritate them and take away from their work by taking time out of their day day just so that I can ask them questions. And this comes back to the psych pop part of this video, but in general, people like to talk about themselves. People like to feel valued and like to feel that what they're talking about is interesting. So think about it. If you're someone and you're going up to someone and you're saying, I find what you're doing so interesting. I possibly want to do what you do for a living. I just want to get your advice and see what your work is like. You know, in general, people would love to be asked that. I did this when I was an undergrad for a while. I thought I wanted to be a school psychologist. I shadowed 2 different school psychologists, followed them throughout their day. My teachers were totally fine with me taking off class for the day so that I could shadow. And through seeing what a school psychologist was going to be like, I realized that it was not the right path for me. And I have to say, I have so much respect for school psychologists. I actually think it's a really wonderful field to get into. I just realized from those experiences it wouldn't have fit with my personality type. But again, if I had only focused on that passion piece, this gets back to number 1, if I had only focused on the fact that I love the topic of school psychology, I would have ended up in a job where I would have been unhappy because although I love the topic, I would not have enjoyed the actual work. My foot's asleep and I'm out of breath, so I'm gonna go literally crawl to the kitchen and get some water. Now getting into number 3, I'm gonna apologize in advance because I'm not gonna be as concise with this. I don't even know what I'm gonna put the text to be here. But overall, my next piece of advice is to not pick a job or career path simply because you don't want to have a boss and you don't want to work the 9 to 5. Before I get into this, I'm going to put a little bit of a disclaimer and say that if you have a topic or an idea that you are so passionate about and because of that you're going to be your own boss, then 100% go for it. I am not saying not to do that. Just do it! But don't have the number 1 reason you choose a certain career path just being that you don't want one of those stereotypical jobs. And the reason I bring this up is I've noticed a trend with millennials, and as much as I'm fucking sick of hearing people talk about millennials, but that's a topic for a whole different video. Obviously, I'm a millennial, and I've noticed a trend with my generation where everybody is just really focused on not wanting to have a boss and not wanting to work a stereotypical job. And as an example of this, I read recently, and I'm not 100% sure this is true, but this is what the study said, the number 1 job choice out of current high schoolers is to be a YouTuber. And obviously not saying that being a YouTuber is a bad thing. I'm obviously a YouTuber, and I do think, you know, if you can get your full income out of being a YouTuber, which many people can, then it 100% is a real job. However, that ties back to the point I was making earlier where it just seems like particularly my generation is just really focused on not wanting to have a boss. And with that, it's often people who have never even had a boss saying that they never want to have a boss. And I will say I had that mentality. I had a bunch of part-time jobs. I was a peach farmer, which was stupid because I'm allergic to grass, and then I was a maid, which is stupid because I'm allergic to dust. Anyway, I had a bunch of those jobs, so I had a bunch of bosses before and I hated it, and I thought, okay, I definitely want to be self-employed. I don't want to have a boss. However, the one thing I realized, especially during the job I'm in now, and I realized that once you're in your career and you're working in an area and a topic that you're passionate about, and then you have a boss who has years of experience within that realm and they're also really interested in that realm, that's very different. My boss right now is a woman who's been working in my field for probably 12 years or so, and she is fucking fantastic. She's just a badass boss lady. I learned so much from her. She's such a fantastic both work and non-work mentor. And I'm sure people are about to comment and say, well, I hate my boss. And I understand that there are a ton of situations where people hate their bosses, and I realize that I'm lucky in that sense in my current position, and there are a ton of shitty managers and shitty bosses out there, but that's not always the case. So don't just pick your career path based off of not wanting to have a boss, especially if you've never even experienced having a wonderful boss before. But again, if you have something you're passionate about and that happens to entail not having a stereotypical office job and not having a boss, then obviously go for it. You don't even need to have a boss to have a mentor. You can obviously find mentors that aren't related to your job. Again, the crux of what I'm trying to get at is that being your own boss is a wonderful thing, and there are a lot of situations when I think it's warranted. I think there are a lot of personality types that really fit with not having a boss. But again, just don't pick a career path and ignore opportunities simply because you don't want to have a boss. And again, that ties back to number one, don't just focus on the environment piece, make sure it's equal parts what you're passionate about and also the environment. My next piece of advice is, and this is going to sound cheesy at first, but I actually promise it's really not, and that is to have confidence in yourself when choosing your career path. And what I mean by that is do not pick a career path or say cross off a topic or career you're really interested in because you don't think you're going to be capable of accomplishing it and getting there. I'm going to give a couple of examples with this that I think a lot of you guys are going to be able to relate to. But during undergrad, there was a time period when I was really interested in being a physician's assistant, and I even went and shadowed a physician's assistant, and I thought, oh my god, this is something I would really love. And then one of the bio classes that I knew I would have to take in undergrad, I took the first class in and I heard what percentage of people failed. And if I'm being 100% transparent and honest with you guys, even though I've always had good grades and studied hard and done well, it freaked me out and I was really busy that semester, and so I ended up not taking the class. And obviously I love what I currently do and I know that I'm in the right fit for me, but a little, even if it's 0.01% of my brain, does wonder in the very back of my mind, what if I had taken that class? So if you're watching this video, don't let that happen to you. Don't choose your career path out of fear. And my next example relates to being an introvert. I'm a massive introvert. I know a lot of you guys are. I've done a whole psych pop video on what introversion actually is and a lot of misconceptions around it. But there was a period in undergrad when I was really focused on researching online what type of job would be a good fit for me. And I swear, I typed in, and I know some of you guys watching this video probably have done this too, but I would sit there and Google like at 1 a.m. and be like, well, that's not true. I go to sleep early. It would have been at like 9 p.m. But I would sit there and be typing jobs for introverts, best career paths for introverts, jobs where I can be in a basement alone. There was a very long stint of me doing that. And looking back on it, I was definitely making that error I talked about in number one, where I was just 100% honed in, just focused on what my work environment would be like. And I wasn't focusing on what I was passionate about. I was just focused in looking at the environment and making my decision based off of fear of what I thought I wasn't capable of. I was just so convinced that I would hate being in an office setting. I would hate having to go see and interact with people not every single day, 5 days a week. And I will say, even when I picked my master's in industrial organizational psychology, I picked it kind of knowing, yes, there were a lot of jobs within this field where you're around people a lot, but there are also a lot of jobs where you're mainly focused on the statistics aspect and you're not around people a lot. So I figured, okay, good, either way, there's gonna be a fit for me. But getting back to my example, I had a 3-month internship where it was in a normal like 9 to 5 office setting. And the first, I would say 4 weeks, I absolutely hated it. And I thought deep down, I was like, see, I knew it. I'm an introvert. Being around people 5 days a week does not work for me. Then I would say after that first month, I started to actually enjoy it and I got used to the routine, and I realized it wasn't that I hated around being people that much, because realistically a lot of my time was spent alone in my cube. I wasn't actually around people that much. It was really just the fact that it took me a while to get accustomed to having that 9 to 5 routine, especially coming from college where you can kind of make your own schedule. It takes a while for your brain and body to get used to that. If I made the decision of not wanting that type of work after 1 week, I would have been basing it basically off of nothing. Now, am I saying that if you're an introvert that you should go off and be a recruiter and be at career fairs all day where you're talking to 100+ people? God, no, don't do that. Obviously, you should be realistic about what type of work environment your personality is gonna work in. I'm just saying, getting back to my main point, don't pick a career path or look into a type of job only because you're basing it off of fear. So those were my main pieces of advice. I hope this video was helpful for you guys. I know I could kind of see people maybe not enjoying this type of advice, and I think some of you guys, especially I'm picturing myself back in high school or undergrad, I would have loved for someone to just be like, here, take this personality test, here, take this quiz, and it'll tell you the perfect job for you. But realistically, it's just not that simple, and the best thing you can do, the whole, I guess, gist of this video and one piece of advice, is to just gather as much research as possible from as many different resources as possible, and that is going to be realistically the main thing leading you towards a career where you're happy. Of course, keeping in mind, again, like I said at the beginning, that your career is probably going to change 20 times throughout your life. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you think this advice was helpful, and definitely leave your own advice down below. I will see you guys on Wednesday for a book-related video, and I'll see you guys soon.